If you're coming to Portugal this summer and you want to drive here in an electric vehicle, or if you're hiring an electric vehicle in the airport, this is the video that you need to watch. And I'm going to explain to you everything about the Portuguese electric vehicle charging network, the chargers, everything, because it's different to any other country in the world. It's very different to Spain, France, Germany, England, all of those countries. Now, if you're a Tesla owner, you'll just think, I'll just use the Tesla Superchargers in Portugal. Watch this video because you will need to watch this video because Tesla Superchargers here are not great, and I'll explain why in a minute. So in Portugal, there are basically three charging networks. One of them is the public Miio network, that's owned by the government. The other one is the Tesla network. Now, only Tesla drivers can use the Tesla Superchargers in Portugal. And another one is Continente supermarkets. Now I'm going to explain all of these to you in this video. By far the biggest network in Portugal is the Miio network. Forget about using your Ionity app, forget about Shell, forget about BP, forget about Lidl, forget about Aldi, forget about all those places you charge outside of Portugal. So we're going to talk about that network. Now, I've got three kinds of people who comment on my videos, and I don't want to offend any of them, but I'm going to put them into these three categories. So you've got the non-Tesla Portuguese owners who drive around Portugal using the Miio network, charging everywhere, having no problems, not queuing, using chargers everywhere because there's lots of CCS and Type 2 chargers everywhere in Portugal. It's normally not a problem. The motorway network is a little bit more complicated due to queues in the summer, but generally it's really easy to charge in Portugal on the Miio network. Now, these Portuguese non-Tesla owners sometimes will comment that I'm being a bit unfair about the Miio network. Now, I used to be one of these non-Tesla Portuguese owners, and I had no problem with the network either. Then there's a second type of person. Now, these are the people who come on holiday to Portugal or come on business to Portugal in their electric vehicle, and they have a nightmare using chargers in Portugal. And these people, they often contact me, and I try to help them when they come to Portugal. They normally leave comments in my site, or they go to my Twitter handle, which I will leave here. So if you do have problems charging in Portugal, you can always send me a message on Twitter or comment on this video, and I will always try to help you if I can. The problem is, the first group, the Portuguese owners, don't understand why the second group, the foreigners, have so many problems in Portugal charging. And then the foreigners don't understand why the Portuguese people say so many good things about the Portuguese charging network. So I'm going to explain everything to the foreigners, and I'm going to explain tricks and things you need to know about the Portuguese charging network, so when you do come to Portugal, you have absolutely no problems. The third group of people are Portuguese Tesla owners, and Portuguese Tesla owners absolutely hate the Miio network. And they will say and do everything to stop the Miio network. And perhaps the Miio network will be stopped because we've got a new government that's looking into it. So now I'm in this category of being a Tesla owner and not liking the Miio network because of the rules of the Miio network. The Tesla Superchargers are not allowed to expand Portugal. We'll go into that in a bit more detail later. So in Portugal, we've got the Portuguese government's Miio network, and all public chargers have to be on that network. Ionity, Lidl, all chargers have to be on that network. Now, each charger has got a price, and that price will be displayed on the charger. Let's have a look. So this power dot charger on the Miio network, by law, has to show the price. So here, if you can see that, this here is saying that it is 2 cents 80 per minute. But that's not what you're actually going to pay. You're actually going to pay more. What do you mean I'm going to pay more? That's just the price of the charger. Now, on each of these chargers on the Miio network, you can use a different electricity supplier. So they will also have a price. So let's say your electricity supply is 20 cents per kilowatt hour. That's what you'll pay for the electricity. And then you'll have to add the 2 cents 80 per minute to that price. Also, using the Mobi network, you have to pay a fixed charge. I think it's 30 cents or something, can't quite remember. And then add taxes and all that kind of stuff. So what you pay at the end will be taxes, Mobi network charge, the price per kilowatt hour of the electricity or price in minutes, depending on your electricity supplier, and the price of the charger in minutes or kilowatt hour, depending on the charger. Now, each charger has to, by law, display the price. In some cases, it's not on a sticker. Some cases on the screens. You have to press the buttons on the screen to see the price on the screen, and that will give you the price just of the charger. So on the Mobi network in Portugal, especially in Intermarché supermarkets, you will often find CCS chargers, and this one here has got some nice chem powered chargers, and most of the time you'll find that they're empty. So this has got two CCS, one charger mode, and it's also got a type 2. Most towns and cities have more than one CCS charger, so it's normally not a problem. And you see they're really well signposted, often with an electric vehicle on the road. And also we've got this sign here, and that's a legal sign. It says 5 places, and this encarga, what it means is that you're only allowed to use these spaces while the car is charging. So if the car is not charging, then you're legally not allowed to use them, and you could be fined. So in Portugal, there's Lidls everywhere, and this is really great if you're coming from Germany, because you can buy your German sausage and your German beer here. Local products also available. Now, Lidl is everywhere in Portugal, and normally they have 50 kilowatt chargers. Again, these chargers are on the Mobi network, these Lidl chargers, but generally most Lidls have them, but they're only 50 kilowatt. It's great if you've got an efficient EV like the ID3, with a medium-sized battery, but it's not so good if you've got an e-tron that's inefficient with a huge battery. But again, you're near Lidl. So these are a good option, and these are some of the cheaper CCS chargers in Portugal. If you're completely fed up of delicious Portuguese food and your kids are screaming for Burger King or McDonald's, most McDonald's and Burger Kings have CCS fast chargers. For example, this Burger King here has a CCS fast charger, but it hasn't come online yet. But I think McDonald's is a bit more advanced than Burger King. Burger King has just started to install them now, so hopefully they should all be ready for the summer. Again, fast chargers at McDonald's and Burger King are on the Mobi network. So many Pingo Doces, which is another supermarket in Portugal, have CCS chargers on the Mobi network, but this one doesn't. So Prio is a petrol station in Portugal, and these often have CCS and Type 2 chargers. The CCS chargers here are currently completely full and being used, which is great news. Unless you want to charge there, but I don't. Also, other petrol stations such as BP, Galp, Repsol also have CCS chargers, but you'll find that out in the app. And again, these are all on the Mobi network. If you're a foreigner coming into Portugal, I would recommend probably 3 different electricity companies that you can use. The first one is Miio. The Miio app is great because it shows you in real time all the chargers in Portugal, what's online, what's offline, what's currently being used, etc. And you can charge with the app. Now, sometimes foreigners have complained about the 4G network in Portugal or telecommunications, because sometimes the chargers don't work or the phone doesn't work. Generally, I think the 4G network in Portugal or 5G network is great. For me, it always works, but I'm on Vodafone, and that's the best network in Portugal, apparently. But sometimes with the foreign phones, it doesn't work so well. So if you can and you've got time, order a card from Miio. It's going to cost you a bit of money, but go to their site, order a card, because sometimes the charger will just work with the card and sometimes the app won't work and it's fiddly. Now, Miio charges per hour, so if it's a very windy day, normally it's cheaper, and there's a lot of sun, and it's cheaper. But if it's, if there's no wind, there's no green energy available, it's going to be more expensive. But it gives you a prediction of 1 or 2 days about the cost of that hour. Now, there's another charging company in Portugal which is quite cheap, which foreigners can use, and this is called Evio. Now, Evio, I think has a more fixed rate, and you may prefer that. And you can look at the Evio app to see the pricing of the Evio charger, and you can also order a card from Evio, which I'd also recommend. So Miio and Evio, they work on all the public Mobi e-chargers in Portugal. They work on Ionity, Galp, Lidl, all of them. There's another charging card you can get called Prio. Now, I don't think they've got an app, but they charge per minute, and you can order a Prio card. Again, I'll put all these links in below of all these companies. Now, there's lots of other electricity suppliers in Portugal that generally only residents can use, so I won't list those below. I'm probably missing out one or two that are available to foreigners. So, from what I have seen, is that the app is not a problem, the card is not a problem. The problem is linking a foreign bank account to Miio or Evio. It seems that this causes big problems. Now in Portugal, most of the bank processing is done by SIBs. So another public network, I think, is a common theme in Portugal. And I think that probably both Miio and Evio are using SIBs. Now it seems there's been problems with people adding their credit card or bank card to these apps. I don't think it's their problem. I think it's more of a problem with this SIBs, Portuguese banking network. Now, this was definitely a problem last year. I don't know if this is still a problem this year. So because your bank card doesn't get linked correctly to the apps, you go to charge your card and it just won't charge because obviously it's not linked correctly to a credit or debit card. Now, if you're coming to Portugal, obviously you're probably going to drive through Spain. Definitely you're going to drive through Spain, but you'll probably maybe driving through France or Italy. Now, the Miio app and Miio card actually works in Spain. It works in France. I'll link these two videos above about charging in Spain and France. So what I would do, if you're in France, you're in Spain, use the Miio app before you come to Portugal. Check that it's working on one of the chargers in your country. And if it is working there, it's going to work in Portugal. If your card, if it's not working in France or Spain, you've got time to contact Miio and to try to resolve the problem before you actually come to the country. But you might just not want to use these Portuguese charging companies such as Miio, Prio or Evio. And now there's another option, and this is a really good option. Now Wenea, which mainly has chargers in Spain, and Wenea chargers in Spain are really good. They're everywhere. It's a really good charging company. Now they charge 59 cents flat rate per kilowatt hour on any charger in Portugal on the Mobi E network. They recently joined the Mobi E network, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago. So what's good about Wenea? The best thing about Wenea is it's not on a Portuguese, it doesn't have to use the Portuguese banking network. It's a Spanish company, I think. So get the Wenea app. I don't think they have a card, but get the Wenea app. Try it out in Spain. I know Wenea works on Ionity in Italy, so you can even try it out on Italy. Not sure about France. Try it out there, add your debit card, credit card. It should accept foreign cards, accepts my Portuguese card, no problem, for the Spanish company. Works really well. Now you're going to pay a flat rate of 59 cents. Now, sometimes this is good because charging in Portugal can sometimes be more than 59 cents per kilowatt hour, especially on our Ionity chargers. If you're using Miio or Evio on Ionity chargers, you can be paying anywhere between 80 cents and €1 per kilowatt hour. Well, Wenea is just 59 cents. Little problem with Wenea is when it is cheap on the Portuguese Mobi E network with Miio or Evio, you're still going to be paying those 59 cents, even if on the others it's cheaper. But I think Wenea is a great option if you're coming to Portugal. And I've tried it in Portugal, it works. And their charging network in Spain is just so reliable. It's a really good option for Spain as well. So when you install your Wenea app, you're going to say, Marcus, there's no chargers in Portugal being shown. No, what you have to do, you have to go into the app, you have to click on filters, and then you have to click on a strange button called show interoperable. If you're still doubting, should I drive my EV to Portugal? A couple of things to do. When you get to the Portuguese border, charge your car to 100% in Spain. As I said, Portugal's a small country. It's not that far. To get from the border in Spain to Lisbon, most EVs can probably do that without charging. And then if you do get an emergency where the charger's not working or whatever, potentially you can charge in your hotel or find someone with a slow plug. Other people who have had problems in Portugal in the past have been at a charger, and Portuguese people are extremely friendly, extremely nice. And the Portuguese person, if they see a foreigner struggling, they will often offer to help. They will lend them your card, and they won't even ask for payment a lot of the time. But don't expect that. Don't expect to abuse Portuguese people. Always try to offer them money if you can. But that may be an emergency option, and I've known people who have done that because Portuguese people are really nice and friendly. But anyway, now we've got this Wenea option, I think you'll definitely have no problems charging in Portugal. And as I said, just try the Miio in France and try the Wenea in Spain and the Miio in Spain, just so that you are more relaxed, that you definitely know everything is working before you actually get into Portugal. So hopefully, after watching this video, the second group, the foreigners who come to Portugal, will stop complaining about the Portuguese network because they've watched this video and they've learned about how to use the Mobile network. Now, the second network in Portugal is the Continente supermarket. So Continente supermarkets are like Carrefour in France or Tesco's in England. They're everywhere and it's a big supermarket. Now, they are installing many new chargers. Not all of the shops currently have chargers. Now, they are doing this slightly illegally because in theory they should be on the public network, but they're not on the public network because they've got very good lawyers and they don't charge you per kilowatt hour. They don't charge you per minute. They charge you for the parking space. So you get paid for the parking space, and that parking space just happens to have a charger that you can use. Now, the parking spaces of DC chargers are more expensive than the parking spaces of AC chargers, funnily enough. If you spend X amount of money inside the Continente shop, I think they give you 30 minutes free of AC charging or 10 minutes free of DC charging. I'm not quite sure, it depends on the promotions they've got and stuff. But normally the Continente chargers are some of the cheapest in Portugal, even if it is per minute. It's really hard to work out what the price is going to be when it's per minute, unless it's AC. What's the problem? I don't know if you can use Continente cards if you're not a Portuguese resident. So what you have to do, you have to install their loyalty app, their Continente loyalty app, and you have to add your credit or debit card to it. I don't know if it accepts foreign credit and debit cards, I don't know. Once you've added that loyalty app, which is like the Tesco loyalty app, or I guess the Carrefour loyalty app, what you then have to do, you have to install another app, which is their charging app, and you have to link your loyalty app to that charging app. It's all a bit complicated. So I'm going to leave the links for these two apps below. You can try it if you're a non-Portuguese resident and tell me if it works or not. Now, I keep calling you foreigners. I should probably not call people foreigners because it's probably a banned word, politically incorrect. I should probably call you tourists, business people, or fellow European citizens and fellow world citizens. But that's it. I'm just using the word foreigner, so I'm sorry if I've offended half of my audience. If you install the Miio app, please use my loyalty card below. I think you'll get a bit of money off, and I'll get a bit of money off, so it works well for both of us. The best thing about the Miio app is you can add the other chargers, such as Prio, or I'm not sure about Evio, but you can add Via Verge. You can add many different charging cards to the Miio app. It'll actually tell you which is the cheapest, which is really nice because aren't they in competition with the other companies? Let's talk about the Portuguese motorway network because you're coming from abroad. Obviously, you're going to be using the motorway network. Normally in Portugal, there's a service station on the motorway network every 40 kilometers, more or less. And this is where Portugal doesn't get quite so good. So most service stations every 40 kilometer will have at least one CCS or CHAdeMO charger. Now, there's service stations on each side, so that means two. But it's very difficult if you're traveling one direction to go to a service station of the other direction in Portugal. There's no bridges or anything called tunnels between them. So basically you've got one. In some service stations there's two, and if there's two it's normally a 50 kilowatt charger or a 150 kilowatt charger. Now this is an area where they definitely need to install more CCS chargers in Portugal. Now there are a few service stations coming online with 6 on each side, so that makes 12 with Ionity. And there's a few more which have got 3 or 4 chargers, but generally there's no big hubs on the service stations. Ionity are starting to install them where there's 6, but apart from that, it's not great, and hopefully it should get better soon. CCS chargers in towns and cities, they're everywhere, and you'll normally always find one that is available. Now, motorways in Portugal are quite good because generally they don't have much traffic unless it's the summer and it's Friday evening, it's Saturday, or it's Sunday. Now, these are the days you really want to avoid the motorway network, especially between Porto and Lisbon and the Algarve. Those 2 motorways is what you really need to avoid. The motorways more in the interior shouldn't be too bad. Let's remember that Portugal is actually a small country, and between the Algarve and Lisbon, it's about 250, 300 kilometers, and between Lisbon and Porto, it's about 300 kilometers. Now, most modern EVs can do 250, 300 kilometers without needing to stop to charge. So if you've got one of those EVs, then make sure you're fully charged before you get on the motorway network. Then you won't have to stop and charge, and you'll leave the CCS chargers for other people to use. But if you do need to charge on the motorway, consider coming off the motorway and looking in some of those towns, perhaps having lunch in a town, or using the CCS charger in one of the Lidls in the towns on the way. You'll have a small diversion, but it may be worth it. Another tactic I've used on the motorway is charge early and often. So as I said, they're every 40 kilometers, which is a good thing. So even if you don't really need to charge, stop at the first one, see if it's available. If it's available, charge a bit. If that's not available, stop at the second one. If that one's available, charge a bit. If that one's not available, go to the third one. If that one's not available, go to the fourth one. It might be at the stage where you get to the fourth one where you have to queue. But if you try to get to them early and often, then hopefully you won't need to queue, even if your charging speed is going to be a little bit slower. But in the summer is the worst time, Friday evening, Saturday, and especially Sunday evening. So if you can drive out of those times because you're on holiday, the motorway services shouldn't be a problem. Now, these are your friends in Portugal. These are Type 2 chargers, all on the Miio network. And before I forget, all the motorway chargers are also on the Miio network. Now, why are these your friends? Every small town, every city normally has quite a few of these Type 2 chargers. 22 kilowatt Type 2 chargers. Now, most EVs can only charge at 11 kilowatts, 7 kilowatts. A Zoe can charge at 22 kilowatts, but these are your friends. Why are they your friends? Generally, not always true, they're cheaper on the Miio network than the CCS chargers. Also, they're normally at good parking locations in the centre of towns or near beaches. Now, this car park happens to be free, but there are some car parks that you have to pay for. And if you're charging, then you only pay for the charging. You don't pay for the parking place. You can get some of these in some really good locations. I shouldn't tell you this, but sometimes that's what I do, because the car parks can be full, but the Type 2 chargers are empty. So you can get some really good positions in town or near the beach and charge at the same time. What could go wrong? Nothing. So obviously, if you've come to Portugal, you want to try the wonderful food, you want to go on the beach, you want to visit historic towns. So let's say you're on the beach in the Algarve and you need to go back to Lisbon. So put your car to charge. Even if you have to walk a little bit further to the beach, charge it to 100%. And then when you get in your car, you'll probably be able to drive all the way to Lisbon without even needing to stop to charge. Another advantage in Portugal is that if you don't want to use a motorway because you have to pay tolls, they're expensive, you can always use the slur roads. And if you use the slur roads between the Algarve and Lisbon, you'll get to see great scenery, but you'll also use less electricity, so it'll be even easier to drive from, for example, the Algarve to Lisbon on the scenic routes, and you'll save a lot of money in tolls, probably around 25 euros. So there's another advantage. You get to see beautiful countryside as well. So wherever you see a Type 2 charger, they'll be on the Miio network. just use them. Just use them. Because often I see these not being used when I'm in the Algarve or in Lisbon. But I see people queuing on CCS chargers in the motorway. Complete madness. Do a bit of planning. Find out where these are in the Miio app or Evio app or Wenea app and use them. They really are great. Let's talk about Tesla and Tesla Superchargers. Literally everybody in Portugal is buying a Tesla, and I think for the past 3 or 4 years they've not increased a single Tesla charger in Portugal. So what does this mean? That means the most likely place you're going to get a queue in Portugal is a Tesla Supercharger, because there's just so few of them. Also, the Tesla Superchargers are not in the best places. Tesla have actually installed new Superchargers in places like Castelo Branco. They've actually added more chargers in places like Alcázar do Sal, but they're not allowed to turn them on or bring them online because the Miio network doesn't allow it, and Tesla is refusing to go on the Miio network. That's why you can't rely on the Tesla Supercharger network, because they don't have that many Tesla chargers throughout Portugal, and literally every man and his dog nowadays in Portugal owns a Tesla. Definitely get a Miio card, an Evio card, or a Wenea app if you're coming to Portugal in your Tesla, and as I said, use Type 2 chargers as well, even in a Tesla. The best thing about Tesla Superchargers is they're extremely cheap in Portugal. I think they're like 28 cents per kilowatt hour. Extremely cheap. That includes everything, VAT, taxes, everything. So if you go past the Tesla Supercharger and it's not busy, then use it. But if it is busy and you don't mind queuing, use it. If not, do what many Tesla owners do in Portugal and use one of the Ionity chargers or other chargers on the Miio network. Now, I hope this video has been useful to you, especially if you're coming to Portugal. Don't worry about charging your EV in Portugal. Really, it's not very difficult, and definitely with this Wenea option, it's going to be even easier. Enjoy the beaches, enjoy the history, enjoy our amazing food, drink our great wine, and spend lots of money in the country before you go back to the colder climates. Thank you again for watching. Remember to click subscribe, and bye.